my father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. In a moment, headliners, but first let's bring you up to date with the latest news headlines. And the Prime Minister has addressed Tory backbenchers at the 1922 committee this evening after returning from his visit to Northern Ireland yesterday in an attempt to gather support for his new Brexit trade deal with the EU. Rishi Sunak says the Windsor framework addresses concerns around the Northern Ireland Protocol, and he urged the DUP to return to power sharing. The deal removes barriers on trade across the Irish Sea, but it still includes a role for the European Court of Justice. Well, Tory backbenchers and the DUP are still reviewing the detail.
If there's a significant EU law that comes along that will have lasting and significant impact on the everyday lives of people here in Northern Ireland, that the Assembly will be allowed to pull the emergency brake. To be crystal clear, the UK government then does have an unequivocal veto. And what I've said is that the UK government wants to sit down with the parties in Northern Ireland, the Assembly, to codify how the UK government would use that veto.
Well, the other main story today on GB News, a couple that went missing with their newborn baby in January have been rearrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. Constance Martin and her partner Mark Gordon were found in Brighton yesterday and were initially arrested on suspicion of child neglect. More than 200 police officers are searching a 91 square mile area to try to find the 2-month-old baby. More than 100,000 civil servants are planning strike action on the day of the Chancellor's budget. Members of the Public and Commercial Services Union, which represents government departments, Border Force and the DVLA, will all walk out on the 15th of March. London Underground staff, along with the unions from ASLEF and the RMT, will also strike in disputes over pensions and job losses. More than 40,000 Marks & Spencer staff, though, are going to get a pay rise from April. The hourly pay of customer assistance staff will rise from £10.20 to £10.90, taking their rate of pay above the national living wage. The move will cost the supermarket £57 million, but they're calling it their biggest ever investment in staff salaries. And finally, the last set of new stamps to feature Queen Elizabeth II's silhouette have been unveiled by the Royal Mail. The 12 stamps mark the 100th anniversary of the steam locomotive, the Flying Scotsman. The late Queen's image has appeared on special stamps since 1968, but a silhouette of King Charles will now be phased in over the coming months. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm your host, Josh Howie, and with me to take you through Wednesday's newspapers are two understudies for the West End production of Magic Mike, Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. Hello.
Hello.
Were you not impressed with that intro? I thought that was like a bigging you up.
I've little idea what Magic Mike is. I believe it's something to do with strippers, isn't it? Isn't it the equivalent?
That's exactly what it is.
Is that what it is?
Is
it just strippers? Is that what it is?
And you can see right now, by you pretending you don't know what Magic Mike is, how good an actor you really are.
Well, we've both done stripping, but paint stripping.
Oh, really? I wouldn't take you to be a handyman type person.
I am.
You're playing it straight tonight. Good. Very good. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we are going to start with the Daily Mail. Police, we fear that their baby has come to harm. The iPaper, Sunak gambles his political career on defying Brexit deal critics. Mirror, exclusive medical miracle, arms of love. Express, Rishi's Brexit boost for the UK. The Times, deal is not negotiable, Sunak tells DUP. And finally, the Daily Star, market traders to forces to, quadruple veg prices. Oi, mush, want to buy a turnip. And those are your front pages. OK. OK, let's kick off with the Times, Leo, and let's get into the Quran.
Yeah, let's get the death threats in early. So, a Quran damaged at a school in Yorkshire has been recorded as a hate incident by the police. So, West Yorkshire police became involved at Kettlethorpe High School in Wakefield after an autistic boy was told to bring in a copy of the Islamic holy book, the Quran, not Kerrang, which is a music magazine. It was a sort of dare by his friends after losing a video game, and it was damaged after being dropped in a busy corridor, and 4 pupils were suspended for a week, and the police intervened after rumours spread that it was set alight, which were totally false. It just, it fell from a bag, as far as the evidence shows, and was mildly scuffed. But still, this was incendiary news for the community, and so the police acted, recorded it as a non-crime hate incident, and the 4 pupils were suspended. So that shows that we now have de facto blasphemy laws in the UK, where if this had been a copy of the Yellow Pages or a Harry Potter, nobody would have...
Or the Bible.
Nobody would have batted an eyelid.
Blasphemy laws were specifically taken from the statute book in 2008 because they were deemed to be in contravention of people's right to free speech. So, of course, the reintroduction by stealth of any level of the policing of blasphemy for and in connection with any religion is completely unacceptable for those very reasons.
Yep, and this happened, I think, only about 10 miles away from the Batley Grammar School, where a teacher was, I believe he's still in hiding after he was teaching, and as part of the lesson, he showed an image of the Prophet Muhammad, which obviously for some reason is offensive or deemed offensive, and he's had to go. And it's not like people are a bit angry. He's had to go into hiding. His family fear for their safety.
Well, this is the thing that's most amazing to me. And Roger, what seems incredible is that the police have recorded this incident as this non-crime hate incident or whatever, yet they haven't investigated death threats, actual death threats.
Yeah. Or grooming gangs. I mean, if they had the same police approach to this as they had the grooming gangs. Well, it's related. I mean, the police just let grooming gangs happen for decades.
Okay, well, let's stick to this particular story.
No, still there have. Well, I think it's kind of related. I mean, it
is related.
Or you think
because
it's the appeasement of a community?
It's about the prioritisation of crime, and clearly all the values that condition that and dictate what the police priorities are skewed horrendously for whatever reasons. What are the reasons?
Well, Suella Braverman has come in here seemingly saying is she going to intervene? What is she exactly going to do? I mean, she's talking, I guess her remit is the police, but for me, these children have also been suspended, I understand.
Yeah.
And surely someone from the Department of Education needs to get involved. They've been suspended for a week. They've lost a week of education because of this. Yeah.
And if we're talking about hurt feelings, I mean, the boy who's the subject of all these rumours and death threats, he's autistic. He's a young kid, and he's absolutely terrified. Hasn't eaten, and he's his anxiety levels are through the roof, according to his mother. So yeah, what about his feelings? Do they not matter? Or we just got to worry about the feelings of certain communities?
Well, just to undermine, underline what you said, though. This
Don't undermine me.
I won't deliberately, but only subtly will I undermine you. This is, of course, absolutely not the province of the police, and it's all about the Department of Education, and it's about the school actually not fulfilling their duties towards and in local parentis of the children. 4 of them, and all children are vulnerable, but an autistic Year 10 child, more so than anyone.
Yeah, and to use these non-crime hate incidents still, which have been, they've been castigated as ridiculous because it's a crime that doesn't actually reach the threshold of criminality. So it's a non-crime.
It's an obscene waste of police resources.
They call it, they're recording it as some kind of a sort of near crime, like a hate incident. It's like, that's an absolute nonsense. It's Stalin-esque policing of people's opinions and minor actions.
It is crazy. Also, we have a little photo here of Princess of Wales, or Wheels, as every single newspaper seems to have gone with that particular pun.
Looking fragrant and not sweaty at all.
That's not how I look in the gym. in any
you don't
way.
wear a long dress over your knees.
Well, I want to cover my modesty.
I mean, I'd love a carry-on type incident where that gets caught in the flywheel and gets ripped off, and she's wearing Union Jack underpants underneath.
She seems to be wearing a sort of Palestinian scarf as her skirt.
Right, well...
as well. But supposedly she won.
As is her constitutional right.
Absolutely, and I'm not offended at all. And then the other... what's the other story there, Roger, on the front page of the Times? It's pretty big. Deal is not negotiable.
Well, yes, absolutely. This is, I mean, genuinely impressive. If he pulls it off, then it's genuinely a coup. This is Rishi Sunak's renegotiation of the Northern Ireland Protocol, which has defied all expectations and has apparently received the approval of the majority of Tory backbenchers who you might have assumed would be critical and might be problematic. Steve Baker, David Davis. It's amazing, actually, frankly, that he's apparently got concessions from the EU that no one assumed were possible.
Well, Leo, I mean, is this Sunak actually kind of standing up to his party, really? Because there were all these rumours that there was going to be these protests on the backbenches and whatnot, and it seems like he's kind of stared them down.
He's standing up to Brexiteers in his own party. He's also standing up to the DUP. You know, he said, look, no backtracking. And but so, I mean, some of the comments he's made are quite funny. He said Northern Ireland is now uniquely positioned to provide access to markets in the UK and Europe. And it's like, what, like the UK, the whole of the UK
like
used to be.
Yeah.
But not only has he faced down his critics, he's actually got Steve Baker, who was formerly, was he not, chairman of the ERG, actually touring the studios in support of the deal. It's amazing. The DUP are in a position as well, of course, where they're very aware of which way the wind is blowing, and they're very aware that a change of administration would leave them high and dry. Mm-hmm. So now is perhaps the time to tuck in. Also, it's like all divorces, isn't it? A few years down the line, the dust settles and you can start to be a little bit more reasonable about things. Yeah. Maybe the EU's seeing someone else. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the key.
I wish my mum and dad were like...
Yes.
I wish my mum and dad were like the DUP and the Tories in Europe.
I don't want my parents to get back together. So, Roger, let's have a look here at the Daily Express. What have they gone with? Continuing, really, a theme.
Well, it's exactly the same thing, Rishi, of course, because it's the big news of the day, and so it should be Rishi's...
The pedal power, Princess of Wales.
Yeah, now this is more interesting because rather than just the picture of the Princess of Wales, they've got the Prince and Princess of Wales like it's some sort of video game.
They look so in love, don't they?
Kart.
They look so happy.
She outperformed him, apparently.
Really?
Mm.
Oh, well, good for her. But no, seriously, getting back to this, this seems to be more about the positive response that's been, received in the business community. Do you think it will actually make much of a difference, Roger?
Well, it's specifically about Northern Ireland, isn't it? So, yes, undoubtedly will make a lot of difference because it's going to take away a lot of the bureaucracy which was hampering businesses in Northern Ireland. Mm. So, undoubtedly, if it goes through, if it doesn't fall apart suddenly in the next 24 hours or 12 hours or 4 days or however long it takes, and we're all waiting to see what Boris Johnson has to say about it, and we're all waiting to see what the DUP has to say about it eventually, but the fact that they haven't yet come out against it has got to be a very good sign.
Yeah.
Leo, is this, do you think, a turning point for Rishi Sunak in his premiership?
Well, he's done a few good things. He's got rid of Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
And he's continued Boris's...
That was him, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. When he challenged the gender reform bill.
Which was a clever move, and he received a lot of criticism for it, and a lot of question marks were raised, and yet he did it, and it was a good call in the end, because it turns out that 2/3 of the Scottish electorate approved of it.
Yeah, and it actually means the Scottish electorate are more likely to want to stay in the UK, because the UK is going to stop Scotland from passing ridiculous bills.
And yet the polls aren't moving for him, apparently.
Yeah.
The polls haven't moved at all. He's had no bounce and received no credit for what seems to be, so far, quite a good administration.
But do you think that people might be seeing this as them, the Tories, fixing their own mistakes?
Yeah.
In a way.
The dice cast, it's set in stone, isn't it? I mean, it would be, frankly, it would take a war to shift the polls now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, Leo, let's go on to a slightly happier story. Arms of Love in the Mirror.
Yeah, so this single dad, Jamie, he lost all his limbs in a terrible accident 7 years ago. I'm not sure what the accident is.
Crikey. It was a pylon, like his like
a pylon.
A pylon.
Like an electricity pylon.
Yes, like fell on him when he was working with a sheet of metal and then essentially...
Not like a pylon in the school corridors.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's horrendous.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Well.
Oh my God! So yeah, then it knocked it tore his arms and his legs off.
All his limbs.
All his limbs, and there's 4 of them. And now he's had a hand transplant, a double hand transplant, so he can hold his children again. And we see there's a lot of advancements with transplant technology. We've seen facial transplants. I mean, the problem is that it's very complicated to join, you know, all the tendons and nerves and all the rest of it. And then, as well as that, you've got the body is trying to with gene advancements. They can sort of match you with a donor who is going to be less likely to be rejected. But you've still got to take immunosuppressant drugs to stop the transplant being
And of course, you've had a hair transplant.
Yeah, but that was from my own head. So
okay, that wasn't someone else. It wasn't from Roger.
100% genetic, man. No, I didn't just steal all Roger's hair. Man, you're going to be pointing the finger about Barnett's.
I don't know what. That's why I'm growing my beard.
Yeah, somebody's been pulling
I'm
on that.
getting my beard ready
to
to get it flipped onto the top.
Yeah, you should just turn your head upside down.
Let's see if that works with the camera here. No, okay, fine. Well, that is a very positive story. Do you know if the hands came from the same person? Because that would be kind of weird.
I don't.
That would be kind of good to know. And also, there's sort of horror movies, aren't there?
I mean, they both look the same colour. So.
Well, if he's lost all his limbs, you do wonder what they sewed the hands onto as well.
Well, I think they had bits left.
Has he got arm transplants?
He's got
as
arms.
well,
He's got tattoos and stuff.
He's
Look,
kept his arms.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
It's
and lovely. Yeah,
terrific
he can hold his daughters and it's a lovely
and also,
story.
you won't have to do that thing where you lie on your hand to make it feel like it's somebody else.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I usually get someone else.
That's I can tell you went to private school, Josh. That is the one giveaway.
Roger, let's finish off with the Daily Star, which we also used. That's what helped.
This is the Daily Star front page, which claims that market traders are forced to quadruple their veg prices, with the wonderful headline, as you've already read. Oi mush, want to buy a turnip. Market traders are being charged £2 for a single lettuce and £24 for a crate of 20 tomatoes.
What?
As Britain's salad crisis worsens. I do struggle to believe that. I haven't personally observed
you know what,
any great shortages in my local supermarket.
I bought some tomatoes the other day, £4.
Really?
For a bunch of tomatoes.
Why did you buy them?
Because I wanted to make a tomato and mozzarella salad.
Just eat something else. What I did, I
was making a bolognese and...
I went down to the shops and bought a bag of frozen peas. And I've been eating frozen peas all week.
Well, I was going to say, this story should be said, this is not affecting Scotland at all, this whole
I'm not in Scotland, I'm literally next to you.
I know, but you are Scotland, like, as a cultural thing, the whole lack of vegetables.
because we don't eat vegetables.
Yes, that was the joke.
Oh, right, I see.
Should tomatoes even be available in February? You do question these things, don't you?
Yeah, also they're a fruit.
Oh, really? They are a fruit. They're available in tins as well.
We're going to get pedantic here. Fine. That's your front pages then. Join us after the break for nameplate microaggressions, good news for drug smugglers, and the SNP safe spaces. Well, if anybody needs them. See you in a minute.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "No, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView, Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So it was from TK Maxx, was it, Leo? Anyway, sorry. Welcome back to Headliners with me, Josh Howie, and Leo Lefty Kurtz and Roger Righty Monkhouse. That's not their politics, just which way they lean. I'm more of a centrist. Let's kick off with the Wednesday's Times and the woman with the cheap wig who brought down the SNP. And Leo, I'm not talking about Nicola Sturgeon.
Do you really think Nicola Sturgeon wore a wig? I mean, what would you ask for? I want to look like my head's unravelling. Anyway, transgender rapist...
Thank you, Roger, for laughing.
Transgender rapist, that's what happens when your head finally unravels. But transgender rapist Isla Bryson sentenced to 8 years in prison. So this is Isla Bryson. Well, it was a man, Adam Graham, who raped 2 women, and while he was in the process, while he was in the court process, decided he was actually a transgender woman. Because in Scotland, if you say you're a woman, even if you're a man, you get sent to a women's prison.
Click your heels 3 times.
You don't even need to do that. It's literally just a magic spell. You just say, I am a woman, and you magically become a woman in the eyes of the law. Because Scotland passed this gender reform bill that made it easier for people to transition. It meant that people could transition at a younger age and without, being verified by a medical panel and living as a woman and convincing a doctor.
And you only have to live, is it for 3 months now, is that right? Rather than 2 years in your chosen gender.
Yeah. So very easy to just identify...
when it's convenient.
When it's convenient, such as when you're a double rapist and you want to go to a women's prison for obvious nefarious reasons. And when the gender reform bill was being debated, this was raised. They said, this could cause these issues. And we were told, no, you're being ridiculous, transphobic bigots. This would never happen. Obviously, it immediately happened. This isn't the only case of this happening. It brought down Nicola Sturgeon because Isla Bryson was originally sent to a female prison, then sent to a male prison when there was an outcry. But Nicola Sturgeon, under her ideology, under her own law, if somebody says they're a woman, they're definitely a woman. So it's like, why do you send women to a male prison?
And she couldn't ever at any point define whether Isla Bryson was indeed a woman or a man, and she was constantly pestered, of course, quite rightly, by every journalist in every interview because she couldn't come up with a straight, logical answer.
Individual was the first line that they all refer, and then they refer to the rapist.
The rapist, that's right, which is a new gender.
Yeah, it's not gender. If anything, it's a sexuality.
Well, in Scottish law, of course, you have to be male, technically, to be a rapist.
Right.
But, I mean, it's interesting to see how all the newspapers are reporting as Isla Bryson, as opposed to their real name, really, which is, Adam. So people are going along with this thing as to this person's identity or not, including, and of course, in the court of law, where one of the victims had to refer to her penis.
Yeah. But I think this will bring down the gender ideology because it exposes the ridiculousness of it. I mean, if Adam Graham can say, I'm a woman, and then everybody's got to pretend that he's a woman.
Including our newspapers.
Including all the newspapers. I mean, that is a massive insult to genuine transgender women who put the effort in and look like women and, don't go about committing crimes. So I think the fact that predatory men can just nefariously identify as women. That's going to bring down this gender ideology, and it's going to go back to the way it was, where it was, you know, if you want to transition, you can, but if you want to be recognised as a woman, you can, but you've got to put some effort in and you've got to really mean it.
And how will he be housed by the Scottish prison system now?
Well, I'm guessing within another secure unit, maybe for people who identify as trans, but in the male estate.
Yeah.
And where they're not, biological women aren't around them.
And there are 4 or 5, apparently, in the Scottish prison system who are identifying as women.
You know, there's one thing I want to say before we move on from this story, Roger, is this person got 8 years for raping 2 women. That seems like an incredibly short sentence for such a heinous crime. And I think it getting lost within this whole gender identity shtick, or whatever's going on north of the border, it seems like a very short period of time for someone to serve. Do you agree? Do you think they should be longer sentences?
I always hesitate to offer up anything on sentencing when I am less qualified than the judge and indeed less au fait with the details of the case than the judge. So I trust the system rather than my own tabloid instinct to say you should lock him up for life. Although I don't doubt he is undoubtedly a threat, still remains a threat, and probably will be a threat when he's released.
Fine, on to Wednesday's iNews next. And Roger, the list of things that can entice children into a life of crime is long. More specifically, a foot long.
This is...
Come on, that was a great joke. You're not paying attention,
It's a Subway
Leo.
joke, isn't it?
It's a Subway joke.
Subway joke.
Oh, well, but you could laugh.
You got the setup.
But you knew that. You knew it.
Yeah, but...
Why didn't you laugh?
Identify with the people at home watching. They've got no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, also, serious subject, Josh, not funny.
All right. That's a good joke. It trumps everything,
story.
doesn't it?
This is all a bit grim. This story is all about various charities providing evidence to a committee of MPs about ways in which the cynical criminal gangs who organise and who are behind the county lines drugs operations in this country lure, trap children into working for them and indeed running drugs, housing drugs, hiding drugs, etc. And it's all... there's a suggestion here that it's all about the cost of living crisis. I think that's spurious, to be honest with you, because, of course, these cynical operations always will target vulnerable children. There will always be vulnerable children, and they will always target them with what they don't have, which might be Subway sandwiches, or it might be sweets, or it might be stolen bikes, or it might be drugs, or indeed it might be, as in this case, apparently, free coins to use in video games.
I was going to say that. Leo, tell us about this, the video games connection.
Yeah, they're not even real coins. They're coins that you use in, like, whatever video games you're playing on your mobile phone to get more levels or more, you know, whatever, make your character transgender, whatever it is. But, I mean, the authorities seem to be, well, it's mandatory now probably, but the authorities seem to be using this as an excuse. They drop this in that they want to beef up the online safety bill to tackle this. And this worries me. This is a very pernicious authoritarian piece of legislation. They'll be hugely onerous on web companies and hugely onerous on people using the web. You're going to have to sign in to watch pornography. It's going to be terrible. And I think the fact is, I mean, all right, these county lines gangs are luring children in, but children clearly want to work. They want to be back up the chimneys and back down the mines. So we need to just, you know, why can't we get them back in the looms? Get British children. No, don't just leave it to Bangladeshi children. Get British children back into those spinning jennies.
Away from drug dealing and back up the chimney. OK.
This rather taps into a story which we're going to tackle later on about absenteeism. Absenteeism has gone up and remained up since lockdown, and it's all about that. And, of course, children who never went back to the system have been effectively lost by the system. They're the vulnerable ones. They're the ones most at risk.
By the way, the figures that we're talking about here, 27,000 children involved, estimated.
Blimey.
Yes. Leo, it's your favourite, The Guardian, and it seems like the best time to fly back from Colombia is half-term.
Yeah, Border Force officers have been ordered to deprioritise customs work at airports, such as searching for guns and drugs, in order to stop queues frustrating travellers. So they're worried that queuing up might annoy people, so they're just letting people go through with bricks of cocaine and AK-47s. So, I mean, we'll wait till you see what else they deprioritised in allowing across the border.
Then straight to the kids.
Anything that can float can basically come across into the country with no problems. But yeah, so it's a good time to make a few quid if you want to smuggle some cocaine, stuff it inside a jam jar.
This doesn't bother me as much as it should do, to be honest with you. I mean, we all know that when there are busy times at the airport, that's a good time to go through with stuff. It's stating the obvious, isn't it, really? And it's only spot checks. It's not intelligence-led searches that are being stopped by this. It's only spot checks. So we all know that you're less likely to get your luggage rifled through by some bored official when it's busy holiday time. And given that we can't secure the beaches, there's no point fretting about the airport queues, is there, when people have already shown their passports?
Well, is this the Tory government knowing which side their bread's buttered? Because it seems like their big concern here with those going skiing. They've got to get through. The Telegraph next, and roses are red. GB News toilets are communal. Black lecturer who complained of failure to put correct nameplate on her door loses racism tribunal.
Wow.
Roger.
This is a black lecturer at Bristol University who has mischievously, well, let's not judge.
It sounds like you did.
Complained about various microaggressions perpetrated against her by the university authorities, like, for instance, not putting her academic title on her nameplate on the door. She's apparently a Briton of Guyanese origin, but she's lost all her claims at an employment tribunal because it turns out that she's merely the victim of bureaucratic incompetence, just like anyone might be, which is quite a good thing. It's quite nice to know that the tribunals work. To some extent, she's a victim of the prevailing culture, isn't she?
Yeah.
When she believes herself to be the victim of racism, when in actual fact she's just suffering, like we all do, from bureaucratic incompetence and the inefficiency.
This is exactly it. I mean, her name is Dr. Peters, so there's nothing there to indicate anybody's ethnicity and whatever. And then, of course, someone else within her department, I believe, also had exactly the same problem. They didn't have the right name onto their thing. So there's no indication. If it's
like a control, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a control experiment. I mean, all the indications are that she wasn't treated differently at all. There are some indications that, of course, you're treated preferentially to some extent based upon your ethnicity in some fields of academia. But
like if you're white and everything. So...
that's so 2002.
But what I was going to ask, Leo, is, and Roger kind of pointed to this, it seems more and more that our court system is where we have to turn to return some sanity.
Well, that's right, and it seems to be the last bastion of objective truth and weighing both sides of the argument instead of just barreling through with this ideology of critical race theory that says that, you know, everything, the air around us is racist and conspiring against anybody who's a minority.
Well,
but can I go back to my point, which is that she herself is a victim of that. You know, it's not just the white authorities that are the victim of this, it's her.
And as a university lecturer, she was too stupid to realise it.
Yes, what a shame.
OK, it seems like her next court case can start now. That's it for part 2. Join us after the break for Bad Education meets Sex Education. Labour goes straight to menopause and our obligatory J.K. Rowling story. See you there.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
all sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, and we're going to kick things off straight with the Daily Mail, Leo, returning to your homeland.
So the SNP are having these leadership hustings. They're having a leadership race.
I've not heard.
Yeah, well, you haven't heard because they're going to have these hustings in secret behind closed doors. It's insane. Like, so normally, you know, political debates happen. They're televised. They happen in open air, so everybody can view them and challenge them and see what the politicians are thinking and saying. And because the politicians in question, particularly Humza Yousaf and Kate Forbes, have said some things that are quite controversial, they've decided, no, we better have this in a cave where nobody can see it. So it's absolutely insane. So the controversies, Kate Forbes is a member of the Scottish Free Church or something like that. Anyway, so it's sort of, you know, quite fundamentalist Christian church. So she's got some views on gay marriage and things like that.
Doesn't like them.
Doesn't really like, gay marriage and stuff like that. Whereas Humza Yousaf, it says, he said he liked gay marriage, but then it was revealed by Alex Neil, there was claims by Alex Neil, who's a SNP politician, that Humza had skipped the vote on gay marriage under pressure from his mosque. So he's also got some sort of religious bias, according to Alex Neil.
He's the only one that will pursue the gender identity business, interestingly, because the other two candidates have said that they would step back from that.
Well, yeah, and Ash Regan actually resigned from the party in protest of the gender reform bill. She was the third candidate.
But what's weird about this, I thought the whole point of televising leadership debates was that you could play to the entire membership throughout the country.
Yep.
Now, they're only having 9 of these secret or safe space events, so you're not going to get the entire membership in those halls, are they, to see the live debates? So how can the membership make an informed choice without the hustings going ahead in a public space?
Well, they're only going to have they've only got 4 members. It's just going to be the same 9 people over and over again. Wednesday's Guardian, Roger, and finally it seems that Labour knows what a woman is.
Well, this is, you see, this is quite interesting, I think, because it's another initiative from Labour, which I think has something to it, in fairness, and you kind of know which way the wind is blowing, don't you, when the opposition are coming out with the new ideas, which are quite plausible, to be honest with you. This is about Labour supporting menopausal women, who are one of the largest growing groups in the GB workforce, understandably, because we're an ageing population, and who are not and have not heretofore received support as they encounter and deal with perimenopause.
What sort of policies are they talking about implementing?
Well, that's a bit more vague, and that's perhaps where the problem lies.
Well, because some of these ideas are, so they'll get paid time off. I mean, that's to be expected. Labour always appeal to people by saying, oh, you won't have to do any work, you're going to get money for free. Yeah. That's the essence of socialism until the money runs out. But the thing that jumped out at me, working environments with temperature-controlled areas. So now every business is going to be burdened with this need to provide some sort of, you know, like a cigar smoking area, but with different temperatures, climate zones.
Some angry women in the corner.
Yeah, it's like don't we have enough hassle and red tape already without bringing temperature into it?
And with red tape in mind, how they're intended to do it is that they're inviting all businesses to submit to a central authority, a government authority, ways in which they will be supportive of and deal with the issue of perimenopause for women in the workplace, which is once again an invitation to just swell the bureaucracy, isn't it? The process.
It is a serious issue. They're arguing that 1 in 10 women are leaving work because of going through the menopause and the hardships. Because of
They're
it.
saying that as an excuse. Really, they enjoyed furlough. They want to sit at home and eat.
Are you looking forward to your wife going through menopause? Then you'll have
we have a
little bit more sympathy.
We have a shrinking workforce, and it's really important to enable people to stay in the workplace if possible.
Not during my lifetime.
This is also quite interesting because, as Roger, you say, we're kind of getting a drip of Labour policies now as we're getting ever tiny bit closer to the election. Also, it shows a certain confidence that they're willing to put these out there now, because who knows what else is waiting for us.
Yeah, and they're starting to put out the proper, you know, before it's all like, oh, we're going to do stuff about immigration, we're going to be good for business and stuff. Now they're like, oh, yeah, actually, we're going to burden businesses with ridiculous legislation and, you know, give people money for nothing.
And help people. The Daily Mail now, and Leo, the Isle of Man really lives up to its name here.
So a school on the Isle of Man has suspended its sex education curriculum after a drag queen guest reportedly told pupils there were 73 genders and made a child who said, but I think there's only 2, leave the classroom. So, I mean, the child was correct, obviously, but first, there's
what are the other 71?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Two genders and 71 narcissistic, attention-seeking, mentally ill idiots.
70 haircuts.
Yeah. But why is a drag queen teaching sex education? I want to know that. I mean, why does a drag queen want to teach sex education? It slightly worries me. Why don't we have balloon sculptors teaching physics? It's nonsense. Why do we get clowns to teach swimming?
Well, those are actually quite good ideas, balloons.
Yes, in the Labour manifesto.
You know, the online, the word that people seem to use is a lot about this stuff is grooming.
Oh, I use a different word.
There's grooming in terms of ideology, but this surely is not right. Do parents really need to be looking into what their schools are teaching their kids?
I think that it's a good thing that schools teach sex education.
Yeah,
I think most people would agree with that. But clearly, education is, to some extent or other, in the grip of trans ideology, which is problematic enormously, especially as a parent. I mean, I think of the Isle of Man as a fairly traditional place. Yeah. And I'm surprised that this sort of nonsense is going on there.
I'm not surprised, because we've seen institutions throughout the country be taken over by places like Stonewall and whatever, and they do it because they feel like, oh, I'm being good.
Yeah,
and then they don't look at the actual detail.
They think they're being good, and they don't realise that they're spreading ideas that have huge ramifications. I mean, the increase in transgenderism in children has sort of replaced anorexia as a way for teenage girls to exercise control and desexualise their bodies.
Yes.
And I mean,
and it's understandable that they would be afeared of puberty and all the processes that all children undergo. And this is, of course, something to hang that over, isn't it? It's a hook to hang their troubled coat upon.
But these kids have been traumatised, they're saying, some of them in terms of not wanting to go back to school, or and it wasn't just this gender stuff, there was also teaching stuff about, I'm trying to think of the right, onanism.
Oh yeah, man! It's really, all I'm saying is I'm sending my daughter to school in Afghanistan. That seems to be the only place
well,
left.
I think that might be the one place in the world that you can't send your daughter to school. There is no school for women in Afghanistan. It's
all right, maybe I didn't think that through. Okay. All right, with Boko Haram, she's going to school with Boko Haram.
Okay, the Times next, and Leo, Are ethnic minorities overrepresented on television? Asked the white host, the white panellist who's sitting next to a white guy.
I am 1/64th Cherokee. So nearly half of TV viewers in the UK believe that ethnic minorities and LGBT communities are overrepresented on television. I just want to know what the other 55% are watching. I mean, it's like every ad break is, some transgender, multiracial person on roller skates trying to sell you some paint or whatever it is. I mean, what they're actually selling doesn't seem to matter anymore, as long as they're in a mixed race relationship and they're wearing a rainbow coloured tutu.
What's interesting about this article, though, in the Times, Roger, is they don't actually seem to provide any statistics for the number of characters from ethnic minority groups who are on television.
I know, and it's ridiculous because it actually quotes in this article very specific statistics about the ethnic makeup of the population according to the census, but it doesn't tell you about their overrepresentation on the television, which seems like, I mean, let's face it, we've got enough media studies undergraduates to sit down making notes, haven't we? So it's baffling to me that you can't compare the reality to the perception.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would say that any such survey wouldn't be accurate because it's your own perception. So you might see somebody you might see Gary Lineker and be like, well, there's a person of colour, as Gary Lineker himself did.
Indeed, for people who aren't familiar with that particular story. But it is interesting that we are kind of talking about this now. They were saying, though, they're using some figures from 2017, which showed that at the time, 500 big marketing companies were very concerned about underrepresentation. And it seems that at that point, which is 6 years ago now, there arguably was a need to course correct. And the figures they do have, I think, are from 2010, where only 5% of TV adverts did have people of colour in them, and about 10% of the country.
Surely they've overcompensated, though. And interestingly, this is a survey which is relative with other countries, and evidently it's a British problem, and it doesn't happen in other countries. And the whole thing, entertainingly, was commissioned. It's a YouGov survey, which was commissioned by Allurion, which makes swallowable gastric balloons to understand perceptions of representation for World Obesity Day this Saturday. So you've been told. I wonder how they'll be celebrating.
Wow, I wonder they didn't actually want to make an advert for that. Sticking with the Times, Roger, and I don't like this term, but surely there's a great pun here about surf and turf.
Surfer, gotcha, yes. J.K. Rowling, who is...
the Queen.
The Queen, perhaps. This is all taken from her podcast, which I understand is quite interesting, and it's about her observations regarding her trolling. That's what's happened, isn't it? Her demonisation by her own fan base, which is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary business. And I can't understand the cognitive dissonance of people who adore the Harry Potter universe and then apparently hate her with equal passion. It seems extraordinary to me. I don't understand when she simply has, bluntly, an opinion which is utterly acceptable, which might not be theirs.
Well, exactly. But Leo, this is interesting because it's actually it's almost like a prelude to what happened, because it's her 20 years ago going online.
Yeah, so she went online 20 years ago when obviously the internet was in a much much less sophisticated state. It didn't have social media and everything, but you had these chat rooms, and she was hounded out of a chat room for her opinions.
She went in anonymous, and sort of said stuff like, "Oh, I think Harry Potter or Snape." I don't know. I've never read the books, but so Snape may be a good guy at the end or something like that. And they went, "You're a loser. What do you know?"
But who'd expect Harry Potter fans on the internet to be reasonable, well-balanced, well-rounded individuals? I mean, obviously they're going to be nerds and geeks and just better at everything. Unfortunately, they're now running everything.
The Green Party in Scotland, in particular. Right, that's it for this section. But after the break, we'll have Russian strippers, BBC paedophiles, and do you have low self-worth? You better come back.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing. We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice.
I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Yeah, we'll just check out my OnlyFans. Anyway, welcome back to Headliners and jumping straight into Wednesday's Times. And Leo, have the BBC made a show that actively they don't want people to see?
It seems so. So the Jimmy Savile biopic, The Reckoning, which stars Steve Coogan as Jimmy Savile, has been put on hold by nervous BBC bosses until after the coronation. They're denying it, but yeah, it's been delayed until late summer, till after the coronation, because of course Savile was friends with Prince Charles. They exchanged letters, were seen frequently together. So they're going to replace it with a drama about Rolf Harris instead. Oh no, wait, can't do that either.
Maybe Prince Andrew.
Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein. There's a string of celebrity.
Roger, do you think that this is quite brave of the BBC to even be commissioning this in the first place?
I'm not sure. It depends on what it's like, doesn't it, really? And we've not seen it.
If they're saying, oh, he was brilliant, I don't think they're going to be doing.
I think that's unlikely. But then again, I do wonder whether, to some extent, because they're on such dangerous ground, you do wonder whether there might be some level of cover-up, don't you? But we haven't seen it.
I don't know. I think if you want to cover up, the best thing to do is just to not commission a TV series about him.
Well, the BBC do have a track record of creating really good dramas, such as Three Girls, the drama about the grooming gang. Sorry to elbow it into everything, but no, it was controversial, and it was criticised. People said it radicalised Islamophobes and stuff like that. But I think it was a necessary look at what happened. And I think this is the same thing. But then obviously the BBC is also state-controlled. It's basically state media. For all we talk about other countries having state-controlled media, the BBC's not really much different.
The key thing is that the BBC was culpable in Jimmy Savile's deeds, acts. Yeah. Therefore, it's awkward for them and it's awkward for everyone, isn't it? You would prefer an independent programme producer to be making this because they would be less likely to be swayed by existing members of staff who are still in the authority.
Overcompensate the other way, but we'll see.
And also, in the BBC's defence, Jimmy Savile made some of the best Saturday evening TV we have ever produced in this country.
Glad he fixed it for you. Let's move on to Wednesday's Sun and Roger. Perhaps the Russian army are preparing for their new jobs when they lose this war.
This is, I knew nothing about this until I read this article. This is the naked general, who is apparently a viral sensation for dancing naked. I'm not quite sure in what context, but apparently it was very, very popular with the kids on TikTok.
What, in the Isle of Man?
I've no idea. Clearly, I'm out of my depth here. But he's being blamed. This is the tenuous link to real news. He's being blamed, apparently, for taking his eye off the ball and allowing the sabotage of the Russian spy plane very near the Belarusian capital, which was apparently taken out by drones operated by partisans in Belarus, who weren't, as far as I can see, Ukrainian, but actually Belarusian opposition partisans.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing angle, which I'm not
And the other intriguing angle, this is commercial drones, I understand. This isn't like from the army.
They just bought them, apparently, from shops. You can.
So much of the warfare has been done with commercial drones. They've rigged them to drop grenades, and they're taking out tanks. I mean, it's incredible what they can do with them. But this is, I mean, I think there were protests in 2020 in Belarus, and this is still ongoing. There's still a lot of people in Belarus who are anti-Lukashenko.
Let's finish on The Independent. And Leo, the planet is saved, right?
Oh, yeah, so they're going to have giant mirrors to reflect sunlight back into space.
It's just using my forehead.
To meet climate targets. Yeah, just buff it up like Benny Hill.
It's already buffed. It's ready. I think we can save the planet. Just get Roger and I standing next to each other.
This is the United Nations. This is a serious thing. The United Nations are genuinely looking at using giant mirrors to reflect sunlight back into space to meet climate targets. But then what about the places that won't get that sunlight? You're going to be in darkness. Mr. Burns did this in The Simpsons.
Exactly. You are unleashing geopolitical Armageddon, aren't you? Because there's going to be so many competing interests. Some people do well out of climate change. Some people do badly. So someone's got to be in charge. A world government has to be in charge of any innovation like this.
And some people like daylight.
Me. I'll be in charge. The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail: police, we fear their baby has come to harm. iPaper: Sunak gambles his political career on defying Brexit deal critics. Mirror: exclusive medical miracle, arms of love. Express: Rishi's Brexit boost for the UK. The Times: deal is not negotiable, Sunak tells DUP. And finally, the Daily Star: market traders forces quadruple blah, 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 blah. And those are your front pages. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to my wonderful guests, Leo Kirst and Roger Monkhouse. Headliners are back tomorrow at 11 p.m. Simon Evans, Leo again, and Steve and Alan, all the adults. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, repeat, you have a proper job, essentially. Good morning. Stick around for The Breakfast Show next. Thank you.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night.